Well, welcome to another edition of Traveling Through History. Tonight we have a special episode. We'll be talking about the beautiful island of Greenland, which has been much in the news lately, as you might be aware. We did an episode some weeks ago about the history of Iceland. And in the history of Iceland, we talked about Greenland and about how they were kind of kin islands. We'll talk about some of the linkages they have in terms of historical individuals who discovered them. But today we're going to talk about this beautiful island of Greenland, how large it is, the history of it, who discovered it and when, why it's so much in the news recently, what some of the governing bodies have been in the 19th and 20th and 21st centuries. And we'll just get into all the different facts about Greenland so you have a really good feel for the island, for the country, for the international politics around it, and for the incredible, unbelievable, untouched beauty that the island of Greenland has. It really is one of the most untapped countries and one of the largest countries in the world. Interestingly enough, being the largest island on Earth. So we will get into the history of Greenland and tell you all those things. In addition, we'll be looking at a quick video, and we'll talk about that video on the other side. And then we will also take a look at some of the interesting facts about Greenland that you might not know. And then we'll also discuss that as well. So let's go ahead and get into the history of the beautiful island of Greenland. So in terms of the history of Greenland, the Inuit tribes, who were actually very akin to the Eskimos in North America, Canada, and Alaska. They were believed to have crossed to northwest Greenland from North America, using the islands of the Canadian Arctic as stepping stones in a series of migrations that stretched from at least 2500 BCE to the early second millennium BCE. Each wave of migration represented different Inuit cultures. Several distinct cultures are known and we have evidence of, including those classified as Independence I, which came between 2500 BCE and 1800 BCE, the Sakak tribe, which was 2300 to 900 BCE, Independence II, which was 1200 to 700 BCE, Dorset I from 600 to 100 CE, Dorset II from 700 to 1200. And then the most recent arrival to the island of Greenland in terms of discovery was the Thule culture in 1100, which the Inuit culture developed through the 12th and 13th centuries. In 982, Norwegian Eric the Red, who we did discuss in our Iceland episode, so if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I will drop a link to it in the description down below, and you can watch that episode as well. Eric the Red in 982 had been banished from Iceland for manslaughter. He sailed to the island of Greenland and settled on what is now known as Greenland. He was actually the one who gave it its name. Returning to Iceland about 985, 3 years later, he described the merits of the newly discovered island, which he called Greenland. And in 986, he organized an expedition to the island that resulted in the development of two main settlements. The east settlement near present-day Orukok, and the west settlement near present-day Nuuk, which is actually the capital of Greenland as of today. These settlements may have reached a population of as many as 3,000 to 6,000 people on about 280 total farms, suggesting that temperatures at that time must have been warmer than they are today because it was very cultivated. Christianity arrived in the 11th century by way of Eric's son, Leif Erikson, who was also very prominent in the history of Iceland, who had just returned from the recently Christianized Norway. A bishop's seat was established in Greenland in 1126. So essentially, the Catholic Church came in 1126 and set up a seat in the new country of Greenland. Beginning sometime in the 13th century, the Norse or Scandinavian settlers began to interact with the expanding Inuit Thule culture and had appeared in the northern Greenland about 1100. But in the 14th century, some 300 years later, the Norse settlements declined, perhaps as a result of cooling in Greenland's climate. In the 15th century, they ceased to be inhabited completely. So very interesting that for several hundred years, these people did really, really well in the Greenland climate, and all of a sudden it got so cold that they ended up declining to the point where it became uninhabited. During the 16th and 17th century, Dutch and English whalers frequently traveled in the seas around Greenland, and occasionally they interacted with the local population that remained there. However, no further attempt at colonization was made until 1721, when Hans Egede, who had the permission of the United Kingdom of Denmark and Norway, founded a trading company and the Lutheran mission near present-day Nuuk, thus marking the real beginnings of Greenland's colonial era. In 1776, the same year the United States got its independence, the Danish government assumed a full monopoly of trade with Greenland, and the Greenland coast was closed to foreign access. It was not reopened until 1950, so that was some 200 years later. During this period, Denmark tried gradually to acclimate Greenlanders to the outside world without exposing them to the danger of economic exploitation. Greenland fell under the protection of the United States during the German occupation of Denmark in World War II and was returned to Denmark in 1945 after the war was complete. Following the war, Denmark responded to Greenlanders' complaints over its administration of the island. The monopoly of the Royal Greenland Trading Company was abolished in 1951, and after Greenland became an integral part of the Kingdom of Denmark in 1953, reforms were undertaken to improve the local economy in Greenland, also to improve transportation systems and the educational system on the island. Denmark granted home rule to the island on May 1st, 1979. It's really not that long ago if you think about it. About 45 years ago, Greenland finally got home rule, essentially their own independent government. At the start of the 21st century, there was growing support in Greenland for greater control of its own foreign affairs. These rose partly in response to a 2004 agreement between the United States to upgrade its missile defense systems at the Thule Air Force Base with Denmark. Inuit, who had been forcibly removed from the area surrounding the base in the 1950s, sued for the right to return, airing their grievances at the European Court of Human Rights. Some Greenlanders were wary of continued U.S. involvement because the United States had stored nuclear bombs on the island during the Cold War without Greenland's knowledge, despite a Danish ban on such weapons. Additionally, in 1968, a U.S. military craft carrying 4 hydrogen bombs had crashed near Thule. There were calls for an independent Greenland, and parties campaigning for greater autonomy scored electoral victories in the first decade of the 21st century. In November 2008, more than 75% of Greenlanders voted for a non-binding referendum calling for greater autonomy from Denmark. The proposal, which was formulated by legislators in both Greenland and Denmark, had the tacit approval of the Danish government even before the referendum was held. It would increase the responsibilities of Greenland's government in foreign affairs, immigration, justice, and other areas, while also granting it the rights to be potentially lucrative in its mining of hydrocarbon and mineral resources that have become increasingly accessible as a result of the island's melting ice cap. It's widely believed that this potential revenue would free Greenland from its economic dependence on Denmark, which many saw as the final stumbling block to complete independence as an island. Snap elections held in June 2009 saw Sumut removed from power for the first time since home rule was granted in 1979. The opposition Inuit Ataqatigiit captured more than 40% of the vote, and party leader Kapuk Kleist worked quickly to form a coalition government prior to the expansion of home rule later that month. In elections in 2013, Sumut returned to power at the head of the coalition, presided over by Greenland's first female prime minister, Aleqa Hammond, whose government placed a moratorium on granting licenses for oil exploration and began requiring royalty payments from foreign concerns before they started mining. Hammond's government also announced its willingness to allow the mining of some radioactive materials, notably uranium, which had previously been prohibited. In October 2014, with her government having narrowly escaped a vote of no confidence, Hammond temporarily stepped down amid accusations of having misused government funds and was replaced by Kim Kielsen. When the parliamentary opposition engineered a snap election at the end of November, Kielsen led Sumut to the polls, where it captured about 34% of the vote compared to about 33% for chief opposition party Inuit Ataqatigiit. Both parties were awarded 11 of the 31 legislative seats, but Kielsen arranged a new governing coalition with 2 smaller partners. In 2016, that ruling coalition splintered, and in October, Kielsen reached out to rival IA to form a new coalition government. In April 2018, the parliamentary election, Simoat claimed about 27% of the vote and 9 seats. The central issue of the April 2021 parliamentary elections was development of a rare earths mine. IA opposed it, as did much of the electorate, which awarded IA the commanding 37% of the vote. In terms of Greenland's overall current political culture, they very much want independence from Denmark completely, and yet they still want some of the benefits of being a European citizen. They've also considered joining with Canada and the United States and being part of the North America Union that is on its way potentially. In terms of the Greenland topography itself, the ice sheet covers about 80% of the island and was the largest ice mass in the Northern Hemisphere throughout much of history. Globally, second in size only to the ice mass that covers Antarctica. It extends 1,380 miles north and south, has a maximum width of 680 miles near its northern margin, an average thickness of about 5,000 feet deep. The Greenland ice sheet extends from approximately 60 degrees north to 80 degrees north, and thus is not in the polar zone like the Antarctic ice sheet. The Greenland ice sheet is protected by cold waters, mainly from Arctic origin, against temperate Atlantic waters from the southeast. In volume, it contains 12% of the world's glacier ice, and if it completely melted, sea level would rise about 24 feet. So you can just imagine. The Inuit are believed to have crossed to northwest Greenland from North America using the islands of Canadian Arctic as stepping stones, as we mentioned earlier. Although the Swedish explorer Baron Nordenskjöld ventured onto the ice sheet in 1870 and 1883, the first known crossing was made by the Norwegian Fridtjof Nansen and his party in 1888, traveling from Aneksokt to Godthaab. Subsequent explorations included those from Robert Peary and Knud Rasmussen. Geological records show the presence of the ice sheet since the Econ epoch about 56 million to 33 million years ago. Deep-sea sediment cores from northwest Greenland, the Farm Strait, and south of Greenland suggest that the Greenland ice sheet has continuously existed since 18 million years ago. More numerous glaciation records are seen for about 14 million years ago during the Middle Miocene period. A warm interval occurred about 2.4 million years ago, as evidenced by a unit 328 feet thick of sand, silt, and clay in northern Greenland. The period from 424,000 to 374,000 years ago is considered to be the best analog to the current global climate. And during this phase, Greenland is thought to have been almost ice-free. So if you can imagine, Greenland has gone through these periods over the millions of years of cooling and heating and cooling. And there was a period several 100,000 years ago where Iceland was completely green and there was no ice at all. So it was a warm period. The ice sheet occupies a saucer-like basin that has a bedrock surface near sea level under most of Greenland. The ice mass, covering an area of 708,000 square miles, is contained by coastal mountains on the east and the west. It is thicker in the center than along the margins and rises in 2 domes. The northern dome, located in east central Greenland, is reaching more than 10,000 feet above sea level, is the area of maximum thickness in the ice sheet. The southern dome reaches up to 8,200 feet in elevation. In the 1970s, the Greenland Ice Sheet Program was organized by scientists from the United States, Denmark, and Switzerland. Deep ice cores from Iceland ice sheet were obtained for comparison with deep cores from the Antarctic ice mass to better gain understanding of the factors controlling present and past ice mass dynamics, atmospheric processes, and the response of ice sheets to climate change. So you can imagine the kind of testing that they're doing to try to monitor this ice sheet as it melts. The Inuit, which we talked about earlier, was the group of culturally and linguistically unique indigenous peoples of the Arctic and subarctic regions whose homelands encompass Qaluit Nunaat, which is a self-governing area of Greenland, Arctic Canada, northern and southwestern Alaska in the United States, and part of the Chukotka, which is part of the Far East region of Russia. These culturally related Ungan tribes live in the Aleutian Islands as a group. Inuit occupy regions that are among the most extensive and northernmost in the world. The broader Inuit population is estimated to be more than 180,000 people. So you can imagine these people are found in very far east Russia, in Alaska, in northern Canada, in different islands around the Arctic, and of course in Greenland. That's where most of the Inuit are found. They share a common language that gave birth to a variety of dialects as a result of the great distances between Inuit populations on different continents. Among those dialects are Inupon, Inushuan, Kalusat, and Tunamusat. These dialects are closely related to Suggestion and Yugoton of the different Alaskan Eskimo tribes. The term Eskimo, long applied to the Inuit, may have come from Miquechua, eastern Canada, who have their word and language resembling Eskimo, which means eaters of raw flesh. Inuit never considered themselves Eskimos until the term was introduced by Southerners, which is, of course, the United States. Once Europeans and others began using the term in the early 16th century, it negatively denoted the eating of raw fish, in increasingly assumed cultural negative connotation as the term perpetuated a stereotype that denigrated the Inuit. The word Inuit translates to the human beings in English. Despite the more recent interpretations of its meaning, the term Eskimo, once widely used in Alaska, is considered pejorative and offensive now. By the 21st century, it had been widely supplanted by the name Inuit, which is now used widely for this tribe of people. The Inuit are politically organized within their own jurisdictions as well as internationally. Founded in 1977, the Pan-Arctic Inuit Council, or the ICC, is a non-governmental organization that seeks to strengthen unity among the Inuit across all continents and to promote rights and interests internationally, and to ensure endurance and growth of the Inuit culture and societies. Inuit have entered into a variety of governance arrangements throughout their homeland to advance their right to self-determination. These include public governments, tribal governments, and Inuit self-governments. The self-determination and self-government of the Inuit are manifested throughout these various forms. The home rule of the North Slope Borough in Alaska, all the way to their major boroughs in Canada, along with their major settlement in the Greenland, as they find themselves very much part of the Greenland government today. During the 1979 Greenland Home Rule Act, which was passed unanimously for independence, the Inuit were a major force in determining whether that act was going to be voted on and passed. However, over the years, Inuit have faced multiple challenges, including language erosion, urbanization, and shrinking communities, significant social and economic inequities compared with other populations of the countries in which they live. One of the oldest known Inuit archaeological sites was found on Seglik Bay in Labrador and dates back to 3,800 years ago. Another was found on Umnak Island in the Aleutian Islands, for which is approximately 3,000 years ago. Inuit are culturally tied to 2,500 years ago back to the island of Greenland. And so you can imagine Greenland, at the time they were called Eskimos, but of course now called the Inuits, have just a huge hold on the island of Greenland, and that is their home, along with many other islands and locations in North America. Inuit are culturally and biologically distinguishable from neighboring indigenous groups, including the Native Americans, Sami from Northern Europe. Studies comparing Eskimo Inuit languages to other North American indigenous languages indicate that the former arose separately from the latter. Psychologically, an appreciable percentage of Inuit people have a B blood type, which seems to be absent from other indigenous American groups. Because blood type is a very stable hereditary trait, it is believed that at least part of the Inuit population differs in origin from other indigenous American peoples. Culturally, traditional Inuit life was totally adapted to an extremely cold, snow, icebound environment in which vegetables, foods were almost non-existent. Trees were scarce, and Caribou, seals, walruses, and other whales, seabirds, and fish were the major food sources. Inuit used harpoons to kill seals, which they hunted either on ice or from kayaks, skin-covered one-person vessels. Whales were hunted by using larger boats called unamak. In the summer, most Inuit families hunted caribou and other land animals with bows and arrows. Dog sleds were also used as basic means of transportation across land. Inuit clothing was fashioned of carbon furs, which provided protection against the extreme cold. Most Inuit weathered inside their igloos. Igloo is a word that actually means structure or house. A lot of the igloos actually were built not just with ice, but were built on stone or sod or over wooden or whalebone frameworks. In summer, many Inuit lived in animal skin tents. Their basic social and economic unit was the nuclear family, and their belief system was animalistic. Inuit life has changed greatly because of the increased contact with societies in the South. Snowmobiles have generally replaced dog sleds for land transport, and rifles have replaced harpoons for hunting purposes. Outboard motors, store-bought clothing, and numerous other manufactured items have entered their culture, and money and unknown traditional Inuit economy has become a necessity. Many Inuit were made to abandon nomadic hunting and now live in settlements and cities, often working in the mines and oil fields. Others, particularly in Canada, have formed cooperatives to market homemade crafts and goods and to have very large fish catches purchased by outside colonies. So you can see, very interesting when you take a look at the Inuit and their history, especially in North America, Eastern Russia, Alaska, and Greenland. So that's a little bit about the history of Greenland. As you can see there, it's a wonderful, magical place. There's only 58,000 people that live there. So there's about 200 times the polar bears that live there other than humans. And they have an incredible wildlife there. It's a very huge island, as you can see. What we're going to do now is take a look at a quick video that gives you some more interesting history about the island of Greenland, and we'll come back and we will talk about it.
Greenland, the world's largest island, a vast expanse of ice and rock shrouded in myth and mystery. This is a land of extremes, where towering glaciers carve their way through ancient mountains, and the ethereal glow of the northern lights dances across the night sky. But beneath its icy exterior lies a land of warmth and resilience, home to a people whose history is as captivating as the land itself. For millennia, Greenland has stood as a silent sentinel in the North Atlantic, its icy heart beating to the rhythm of the Arctic seasons. It is a land shaped by ice, wind, and the enduring spirit of its people. From the first intrepid hunters who crossed the frozen sea to the modern Greenlanders navigating a rapidly changing world, this island has witnessed the ebb and flow of human history against a backdrop of breathtaking natural beauty. This is the story of Greenland, a journey through time that unveils the remarkable resilience of a people and their enduring connection to a land like no other. It is a story of survival, adaptation, and the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of nature's raw power. Join us as we delve into the heart of Greenland, exploring its ancient past, its complex present, and its uncertain future. The icy plains and rugged coastline of Greenland were not always silent. Thousands of years ago, the first explorers navigated the frozen ocean, drawn by new lands and resources. These were the ancestors of the Inuit, who perfected survival in harsh environments. Around 2500 BC, the Sakak people's skilled hunters arrived on Greenland's shores. Centuries later, the Dorset, known for their artistic traditions and whale hunting, followed. Each group left its mark, their stories etched in the archaeological record. They lived in harmony with the Arctic's rhythms, intertwined with caribou, seals, and ice cycles. They developed ingenious tools and hunting techniques, showcasing their deep understanding of nature. But the Arctic is unforgiving, and life was a constant struggle against the elements. Families huddled in shelters, sharing stories and traditions passed down through generations. These early Greenlanders thrived, their culture a vibrant tapestry of resilience and reverence for nature. The year was 982 AD. Eric the Red, a fiery Norse explorer banished from Iceland, set sail westward into the unknown. He sought a new land, a refuge from exile, a place where he could build a life anew. What he found was Greenland. Eric's arrival marked a new chapter in Greenland's history, one that would see the establishment of Norse settlements along the island's southwestern coast. Drawn by the promise of fertile land and abundant hunting grounds, these Norse Greenlanders established farms, churches, and a thriving society that would endure for centuries. Life for the Norse in Greenland was a delicate balance between the familiar rhythms of their Scandinavian heritage and the challenges of this new, harsher environment. They farmed the land, raising sheep, goats, and even cattle, their livelihoods intricately linked to the short, intense summers. The Norse settlements were a testament to human adaptability, a microcosm of European life transplanted onto the edge of the known world. They built sturdy homes with thick turf walls, their communities centered around the local church, a beacon of faith and social connection in a land far from their ancestral home. Greenland, for a time, had become a part of the Norse world, its fate intertwined with the ebb and flow of power and influence across the North Atlantic. The Norse settlements in Greenland thrived for centuries, but their existence was precarious, hanging by a thread in the face of a changing world. By the 15th century, a chill settled over the North Atlantic. Temperatures dropped, winters grew longer and harsher, and the growing seasons shortened, impacting the Norse way of life. The once fertile fields struggled to produce crops, and livestock perished in the increasingly harsh winters. The Norse, so accustomed to the relative warmth of their Scandinavian homeland, found themselves increasingly ill-equipped to cope with the worsening conditions. Isolation, too, took its toll. Contact with Europe became increasingly sporadic, and with it the flow of vital supplies and reinforcements dwindled. The Norse, once a vibrant community on the edge of the known world, were slowly being pushed to the brink. By the early 15th century, the Norse settlements had vanished. Their fate remains one of history's enduring mysteries, a stark reminder of the delicate balance between human ambition and the unforgiving power of nature. The echoes of their presence linger in the ruins of their settlements, a haunting reminder of a lost chapter in Greenland's history. Section 5. A new arrival, the Danish crown. Centuries after the Norse settlements faded into the mists of time, a new power emerged on the horizon, Denmark. Driven by a desire to expand their influence and secure valuable resources, the Danish crown turned their attention towards Greenland, laying claim to this vast icy territory. In 1721, Hans Egede, a Lutheran missionary, arrived in Greenland with a dual mission to spread the Christian faith and solidify Danish control over the island. Egede's arrival marked the beginning of a new era for Greenland, one that would see its people and resources drawn into the orbit of Danish colonialism. The Danish presence in Greenland grew steadily, fueled by the lucrative trade in whale oil, furs, and other Arctic resources. Trading posts were established, and the Danish crown asserted its authority over the indigenous Inuit population, gradually integrating Greenland into the Danish realm. While the Danish presence brought with it certain advancements, including improved healthcare and education, it also came at a cost. The traditional way of life of the Inuit, inextricably linked to the land and its resources, faced increasing pressure, forced to adapt to the demands of a new economic and social order. Section 6, A Changing World, Modernization and its Discontents. The 20th century ushered in an era of unprecedented change for Greenland. The Second World War, though geographically distant, cast a long shadow over the island as Denmark's occupation by Nazi Germany thrust Greenland into the center of a global conflict. The United States, recognizing Greenland's strategic importance, established military bases on the island, bringing with them an influx of personnel, technology, and new ideas. This period marked the beginning of Greenland's integration into the modern world, a process that would accelerate rapidly in the post-war years. Following the war, Denmark implemented a series of modernization programs aimed at improving living standards and integrating Greenland more closely with the Danish state. New schools and hospitals were built, communication networks were expanded, and a cash-based economy began to replace traditional subsistence practices. While these modernization efforts brought undeniable benefits, they also had unintended consequences. The rapid pace of change created social and economic upheaval, as Greenland's traditional way of life, so deeply connected to the land and its rhythms, struggled to adapt to the demands of a modernizing society. Section 7. The Long Road to Autonomy, a people finding their voice. The latter half of the 20th century witnessed a growing movement for self-determination in Greenland. The Inuit, who had inhabited the island for millennia, began to assert their right to self-governance, seeking to reclaim control over their destiny. In 1979, after decades of peaceful advocacy and negotiation, Greenland achieved a significant milestone: home rule. This landmark agreement granted the island a degree of autonomy from Denmark, allowing Greenlanders to manage their own internal affairs, including education, healthcare, and cultural preservation. The establishment of home rule was a watershed moment, marking a turning point in Greenland's relationship with Denmark. It was a recognition of the unique cultural and historical identity of the Greenlandic people and their right to chart their own course. But the journey towards self-determination was far from over. Greenlanders continued to push for greater autonomy, seeking to control their own resources, their own destiny, and their own future. The seeds of independence, sown in the struggle for home rule, continued to grow, fueled by a desire for true self-determination. Section 8. Greenland today. Challenges and opportunities. Today, Greenland stands at a crossroads. The island is grappling with a unique set of challenges and opportunities as it navigates the complexities of the 21st century. Climate change, globalization, and the ongoing quest for full independence are shaping the island's present and future. Greenland's economy remains heavily reliant on fishing, which accounts for a significant portion of its GDP. Tourism is a growing sector, offering the potential to diversify the economy and create new jobs, but also posing challenges related to sustainability and the preservation of Greenland's fragile environment. Education and healthcare remain top priorities as the government seeks to provide its citizens with the tools and opportunities they need to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Greenland faces a shortage of skilled labor in certain sectors, and attracting and retaining qualified professionals is crucial for the island's future development. Greenland's unique position in the Arctic has also thrust it onto the geopolitical stage. As climate change melts the polar ice cap, opening up new shipping routes and access to natural resources, Greenland finds itself at the center of international attention, courted by global powers eager to secure their interests in the Arctic. Section 9. Climate change on the front line. A melting world. Greenland is on the front lines of climate change, witnessing firsthand the dramatic impacts of a warming planet. The island's vast ice sheet, a frozen reservoir that holds enough water to raise global sea levels by over 20 feet, is melting at an alarming rate. The consequences of this melting are profound. Coastal communities are facing erosion and flooding, traditional hunting grounds are disappearing, and the delicate balance of the Arctic ecosystem is being disrupted. For the Inuit, whose culture and livelihoods are inextricably linked to the ice and snow, climate change poses an existential threat. Yet, amidst these challenges, there is also a sense of resilience and determination. Greenlanders are adapting to the changing conditions, exploring new economic opportunities, and advocating on the global stage for action to address climate change. They understand that their fate is inextricably linked to the fate of the planet, and they are determined to ensure that their voices are heard in the global conversation about climate action. Greenland's story is a powerful reminder that climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is a human issue with profound consequences for people, cultures, and livelihoods. Section 10. Conclusion: Greenland's future, a story yet unwritten. Greenland's story is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. From the first intrepid explorers who crossed the frozen sea to the modern Greenlanders navigating a rapidly changing world, this island has witnessed the ebb and flow of human history. Today, Greenland stands at a pivotal moment. The choices made today will shape its future. The path ahead is not without challenges, but Greenlanders have faced adversity before, and they have always found a way to adapt. The story of Greenland is not just of the past, it is a story of the present and the future. It is a story of resilience, adaptation, and the enduring bond between a people and their land. It reminds us that even in profound challenges, there is hope and the possibility for a brighter tomorrow. As the world watches, Greenland is writing a new chapter in its history. The outcome remains unwritten, but the spirit of the Greenlandic people, their resilience, and their deep connection to their land will guide them as they navigate the challenges and opportunities ahead.
So as you can see from that video, so many interesting things about the history of Greenland. You have several different periods we need to talk about. The first one, as we mentioned, the Inuit, when they started coming over in 2500 BC, which is several thousand years before Christ. And they, for several centuries and really millennia, continued to come in multiple waves by using the different islands and Arctic fields as stepping stones to get to Greenland as a country. And so they have been there all along since that time. Then, of course, you had several waves of Norsemen that came across, started by Eric the Red, who was the father of Leif Erikson. Both of them were Icelanders who both came to Greenland. Eric came because he was expelled from the country of Iceland, but Eric, of course, came later, his own, even though his father had already been there, he came later to create his own settlement as well. And so you can see they had the Norseman period. Then those Norse settlements actually died out for a while. And then starting back in the early 1700s and 1800s, the Europeans started coming again. Denmark, Norway both had different claims to the island at different times, but eventually Denmark seized control of Greenland and have had ownership of it ever since. You can see there's a complicated history and political situation ever since 1977, when it got some autonomous rule as a government, all the way up until today, where the people of Greenland continue to demand their own independence. Essentially, they now feel like it's time for them to become their own country and to not be part of the Danish kingdom anymore. So that's the current political and historical situation of Greenland, from the original settlers back in 2500 BC all the way up through today. And you can see it's a fascinating country, although very low populated. It's becoming much more important strategically for both the United States and for Europe. And so that's why it's very important that we understand the history and we understand its current situation. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the interesting facts about Greenland that you may not know.
Interesting facts about Greenland. Greenland is the largest island in the world that is not a continent. The name Greenland means land of people. Greenland is located both north and south of the Arctic Circle. Greenland is the second largest ice sheet in the world, behind Antarctica. It is an incredible sight as you fly over the country and reaches up to 3,500 meters thick in some places. The first people came to the Tula region 4,000 to 5,000 years ago from Canada. Greenland has the lowest population density of any country in the world. The Greenland flag was designed by T. Christiansen and adopted on the 21st of June 1985. It is called Irfalasorput, which means our flag. The red color is called Apalatok, red, and is used both in the Greenland flag and the Danish flag, Dannebrog. The official languages of the country are Greenlandic and Danish, though English is widely understood. Danish krona is the currency of Greenland. Greenland is rich in wildlife, including musk oxen and reindeer, along with various species of whale and birds. Fishing and grants from Denmark are the primary sources of income for inhabitants in Greenland. In recent years, the country's tourism industry has been expanding as well. Greenland has the most northerly capital city in the world, Nuuk. Greenland is NATO membership island since 1949, as part of Denmark's membership. During the summer months, in the southern part of Greenland, you'll find that temperatures can reach 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or higher. June 21st, the longest day of the year, is a national holiday. The national dish of Greenland is a meat soup called saharsut. Normally, it will contain seal, whale, reindeer or seabirds and be seasoned with salt, pepper, onions, bay leaves and served with aromatic or curry in large amounts. The Huarsay Church, which was the first Christian church on the continent, is one of best preserved Norse ruins. The Ilulissat Ice Fjord, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the most productive glacier in the Northern Hemisphere. There's a yearly phenomenon in Greenland where the moon does not show and the sun is bright from May the 25th to July the 25th. That's 2 months worth of sunshine and bright days. It's a pretty cool and natural phenomenon that you should experience at least in your life.
So you can see so many incredible things coming out of that video. The first one being that it's the largest island in the world that's not a continent. So of course it's not quite as large as Australia. If you look at the map of Greenland, it would take up essentially 1/3 of the United States. It would take up the entire East Coast. So that's how large it is. It would take up a very large portion of our country. And as you saw in the video, Greenland is the least populated country in the world with only 58,000 permanent residents. Greenland, as you saw, also is becoming a very big tourist destination. And I'm sure now that it is very much in the news, it will continue to be so. A destination for adventurers all around the world, very similar to Iceland. Iceland, as I mentioned earlier, is a place that we visited as a family about 1.5 years ago, and we did a podcast video on that incredible country. And so obviously Greenland being very similar in nature, I want to definitely add this to my bucket list. I'm looking forward to going to see it. Some other things from that very interesting video you saw there. Greenland is part of NATO as part of Denmark's inclusion in NATO. So that's very interesting. Another thing I'd mention is Greenland is part of the North American continent since it is so close to Canada and the United States, although it is aligned politically with Denmark and with the European Union. So it's very interesting. The land is actually on the North American side of the tectonic plates, which we actually were able to see in Iceland. You also saw in that video that Greenland has an incredible culture when it comes to their wildlife. They have tremendous wildlife, from whales to seals to all kinds of animals on land, and they very much want to preserve that wildlife. And it's very important to Greenland and to their government that they find ways to preserve all of their different animal life. So hopefully you found that very interesting. You learned a lot about Greenland from that video, and that things that maybe you didn't realize about the country, about this incredible island, this magical place that definitely want to go visit someday. And that you continue to read about this amazing island that's in the news lately, and that deserves our attention, deserves our interest, and potentially would be a great location for you to venture to one day if you find it interesting. Hopefully you learned a lot about the history in today's video, and that you please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of good stuff coming your way, and we'll do additional history videos about other countries that are interesting. We did Iceland and Greenland, and we have some other ones planned. So look forward to you joining us next time on Traveling Through History, and hope you enjoy history as much as we do. Have a good evening.